Do you need a little bit of help learning how to do some canning? Well, you've come to the right place. Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. It is so hot out today. But we're inside and we're going to go over some canning. This will be Canning 101, and we're going to begin this series with water bath canning. So today I'm going to introduce to you the items that you need for your water bath canning. So the first thing you're going to need with canning is a pot. You got to have a pot that you can fill up with water. And it doesn't have to be a special canning pot like the one I have here. This is actually a ball canning, just canning metal pot that's deep enough so that way it will fit quart and pint size jars in here and still have enough water over the top of them that's 1 to 2 inches. Because when you're canning and you're doing a water bath can, the pot has to be deep enough so that way you can have at least 1 to 2 inches of the boiling water above your jar. So, and like I said, it doesn't matter what pot you use. If you have a really big, deep Dutch oven at home, you can use that. You just need to make sure it's deep enough. And then the other thing that comes with a canning pot is a rack. And this one has handles on it, so that way I can set it on the outside and pull things out if I need to, or put things in, and then put it back down in. But you don't need to have one with handles. You just need something, a metal rack, or even a metal, they have like metal plates that have little feet on the bottom of them that you can set in the bottom of a pan, and that way you don't want your jar to be touching the bottom of the pan. You want something to provide space between the jar and the pot, so that way your jars are less likely to crack and break. Because if your jars crack and break, your food is ruined. And we don't want that to happen. So we want to try and avoid that at all costs if we can. So you need a deep enough pot, and you need a rack or something to go in between the bottom of the pan and the jars. Okay. The next item you're going to need is a jar. If you don't have jars, you don't have canning. So there are some different types of jars, but you want to make sure that your jar is a mason jar. Mine actually says mason jar on there, and a lot of them do, for them to be mason jars. So, and the reason for that is because you can buy jars that look similar to a mason jar in the craft section at the store, but they're not going to be thick enough, and they're not going to be able to withstand the heat that you need for your water bath canning or even your pressure canning. So you want to make sure it is a mason jar. And this one is a Kerr brand. There's also Ball brand, and I think I have a brand named Atlas, and there's other brands as well. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but I tend to use the Kerr and the Ball brands. But you want to make sure mason jars. All right. So the second part of that is there are 2 different sizes that I use, but there's actually 3 sizes that people typically use. The first size is a quart size. The next size is the pint size. And then there's another a little bit smaller size that's a half pint. So what would you use these for? A lot of times people use the half pint jars for jellies or jams. That way they can give gifts, or maybe you just don't make them as big because you don't have as many berries to get or fruits to have, and so people will buy the half pint. I tend to put all my jellies and jams into the pint size because it's easy for our family just to get in, and it's easier to eat, and we don't have to keep opening up jars, and we go through it quicker. But so anything small, you may want to put, if you chop up your carrots really small, you could put your carrots in this size, peas. Let's see what else. Jellies, jams, relishes are a good one to put in this. And then your quart size, I tend to use for canning chicken or meat or larger vegetables. Like this is some potatoes that I canned earlier this year. And I also put them inside of this is what we call a large mouth quart-sized jar. Okay, so there are two different size openings. This one is a larger mouth and this one is a smaller mouth. So whether it be a quart or a pint, they both come in the large mouth or the regular mouth sizes. And I will show you the difference in that side by side. So this one is your large mouth. This one is your regular mouth. And so, like I said, no matter what, if you buy a pint-sized jar or a quart-sized jar in a regular mouth, you will use the same size lid for both jars. If you use a quart-sized jar or a pint-sized jar in the large mouth, this is what you use. So you want to make sure you have the appropriate jar with the appropriate lid, and then you want to make sure you have the appropriate ring or band to go around them. So this would be the band that goes around the large mouth. This would be the band that goes around the regular mouth. Other types of lids that I think are really cool and I got this year, and I love it because when I'm making something, say pickled eggs, I don't have to waste one of my good lids and good rings to be able to store it in the refrigerator. What I can do is there's these plastic ones that after I get done making the pickled eggs and I want to put them directly in the refrigerator, I can. Or say you open the small jar and that you've had your jelly in, okay, and you just use a little bit of your jelly. Instead of putting a lid and a ring on, you can just add one of these plastic ones and it fits perfect in the refrigerator. So those come in large mouth and regular mouth also. Other things you're going to need for canning, which helps so much, is a funnel. Okay, you can actually buy these 3 items, or 4 items, I'm sorry, these 4 items in a kit, and you just look up canning kit online or in the store, and you will find usually these 4 items will come in a kit together. So what are these 4 items? They are extremely important for your canning process. They help you to keep from burning your fingers as well. Okay, so we have the funnel, which is great. It fits in either size of the jars. You put it in here, you put your fruits, you put your veggie in the jar, and you can also add your liquid with the funnel still in the jar. The next thing you're going to want is a debubbler, or you can call it a measuring stick or a headspace stick, or I don't know, whatever name, doodly dad that you want to call it. But what this is for, this end is to, when you've put your liquid and your vegetables or your fruit into the jar, you're going to take the debubbler and you're going to go around every single edge of the jar, and you're also going to go in the center. And the reason you do that is to release the air bubbles that are inside of the liquid and the vegetables that were in there. 1, so it preserves better. 2, so the glass is less likely to break. And 3, you will find too that after you've released those air bubbles, usually you need to put in a little bit more liquid to finish filling it up to the headspace that you need. So the other part of this tool is a headspace measure. So you have 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch, a 1/2 an inch, and a 1/4 of an inch. And when you check the headspace, what you do is you just line it up with the top of the jar, and if it was a 1/4 of an inch, you would do this one, and you would want the water or the fluid to touch the bottom of this, and that would be 1/4 inch of headspace. If you wanted a 1/2 an inch, you would go one more further down, 3/4 of an inch, another notch, and an inch, another notch. So there's, depending on what kind of vegetables or fruits or item that you're canning, it's important that we know about how much headspace that we're going to need to have, and that's usually involved with the recipe. The next item is your magnetic wand or your magnetic stick. And it has a magnet on this side. And what that's for is when you're picking your lid up out of the hot water, you don't have to worry about burning your fingers, but also that lid is staying sterilized because my fingers aren't touching it. And then that will allow you to then place it on the jar, okay? And a lot of times I just keep it there until after I run my ring down, my rim down, and I make it finger tight, and then I remove it. Okay, so this is a very handy tool. The last step, or the last thing that you need, are your canning tongs. So the canning tongs are very important for placing these jars down in the water, because when you're doing water bath canning, the jars have to be submerged in water by 1 to 2 inches. So you can't just drop your jar down in there, and you don't want to put your jars into cold water, so the water needs to already be boiling. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your jar. It fits nicely around the rim, okay? And this allows you to pick your jar up and place it inside of the canning pots. And then when your canning is complete and you're removing them, this is a great tool for placing it down in the hot water, pulling your jars up, and placing them on a towel on the counter. Okay, so those are the parts and items that we need for our canning, for our water bath canning. Thanks for hanging out with me today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to having more videos with you about canning. Today was the first video in our canning series. This was Canning 101. The next one will be Canning 102, and I will instruct you on how to do water bath canning. I look forward to hanging out with you for the next video, and if you would, just subscribe and share our videos on all your social media, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.